Dr. Mark Changizi here with your Science Moment. Today I'm going to talk about the trans movement, and some facets of the trans movement have gone over a line, and this includes pushing it into the realm of minors. It includes entering women's sports, women's restrooms, things like this. Now, I wanted to give you an analogy to something else, a different kind of case outside of trans. Now, both of these cases are going to be social contagions of sorts. And clearly what's been going on is a kind of social contagion. The rise of trans over the last 20 years is just skyrocketing. So let me contrast it with something in the eating disorders community. Anorexia itself is also a kind of social contagion. It doesn't really happen in the second world, definitely not really in the third world. This happens by virtue of learning about these memes, about this new kind of righteous thing that you can do to your body, and if you do this, it shows a level of control over yourself, and there's whole suites of things that by doing that, it signals how in control you are of your life and things like this. Now, suppose this is treated, of course, in the medical community as a sickness. It's really it's not a personal sickness in the sense of, let's say heart disease. It is psychosocial. It's a much more complex thing to wrap your head around, and as is trans and things like this. But imagine the medical community for anorexia said, okay, what we're going to do, since you really want to look like a skeleton, and often they do, they really fantasize about being a skeleton, having no flesh, having no fat. They say, okay, we'll help you do that. Imagine doctors would remove flesh, remove any remaining fat, remove as much muscle as possible. And they put them on certain kinds of drugs that allowed them to subsist at levels like that, whereas they otherwise wouldn't be able to. Allowing them to live this kind of delusion that they want to live. Now, that would be absurd, it would be dangerous. It would be a signal that something has gone massively wrong with the medical community if that is what had occurred. But that's exactly what has occurred over the last couple decades in terms of the trans community. Even setting aside the overreach of moving into the world of minors and the trans push into women's spaces and women's sports, even setting that aside, the medical community I blame most of all. It is the medical community's responsibility to not fall into these social contagions. Right? To have some kind of common sense that, look, you need just to be that happy with the body that you have, and you can have whatever sexuality you want, but that's the body you were born with. Right? And not create all of these post hoc justifications for why it's healthy for you to remove these bits and surgically install Frankensteinian bits instead. This is no less crazy than if the medical community were to bend over backwards and provide ways for anorexics to be more anorexic. So more than the trans movement, I blame the medical establishment most of all. It's their responsibility to step back, have a big picture attitude towards this, and not fall into the very social contagions that the patients, in some sense, those who are stricken with these kinds of social contagions, suffer from. And that was your Science Moment.